Let's dive into a story that has absolutely captured hearts all over the internet. It's a story that starts in the freezing cold with what looks like total desperation, but it ends with an act of kindness so powerful, it changes everything.
So it all starts with this one unbelievably powerful image. You see an elderly man out in the bitter cold, and he's got nothing but pieces of cardboard and some tape to protect his bare feet from the frozen ground. I mean, it's a scene that just hits you, and you immediately have to ask, how on earth did this happen?
To really get how he ended up in this situation, we need to zoom in a little and understand more about the man at the very center of this whole story.
Okay, so he's a street cobbler. He's someone who literally spends his entire day fixing shoes for other people, often for just a few pennies. And the irony there, I mean, it's just heartbreaking. He's surrounded by shoes, but he can't even afford a pair for himself.
And we're not talking about a 9-to-5 job here. His days are just unbelievably long. He's out there from the crack of dawn until well into the night, just enduring these brutal conditions to try and make ends meet.
And that brings us right back to that first shocking image. A man who repairs shoes for a living, forced to wear cardboard. But the reason why is somehow even more stunning than the image itself.
You see, it turns out this wasn't just a story about poverty. No, it was a story about a really profound, truly selfless sacrifice.
Get this. Right before he was seen taping that cardboard to his feet, he actually had a pair of shoes, his one and only pair. And he gave them away.
He saw a kid on the street, homeless, just shivering in the cold with hardly any protection. And without even a second thought, this man, who had next to nothing, gave away one of the most essential things he owned.
So his kindness is obviously not just a one-time thing. It's clearly who he is. But when you start to dig into the reason for his daily struggle, well, that's where our sources actually tell two different but equally heartbreaking stories.
And this is where things get really interesting. We need to take a look at the two very different motivations that are presented in the different tellings of this story.
So here's where the story splits. One version, let's call it Source 1, says he was saving up every single penny he could to buy hearing aids for his granddaughter, who was an orphan. But then Source 2 paints a totally different picture. It says he was working himself to the bone to pay for his wife's incredibly expensive leukemia treatments. So, two different reasons, but you know what? Both are just rooted in this deep, powerful love for his family.
And this quote from that second source, wow, it just captures everything. It captures the desperation and the love that was driving him. His entire struggle was so his kids wouldn't lose their mother. It's just an incredibly powerful thought.
So it doesn't really matter which specific motivation you believe, because what happens next is the same in both versions of the story. And this is the moment that turns this whole tale of hardship into one of unbelievable hope. A stranger sees the cobbler's cardboard shoes and is just moved. But he doesn't just feel sorry for him. No, he actually comes up with a plan. First, he rushes off to a nearby store. Second, he buys the absolute thickest, warmest winter boots he can find. And then, for step 3, he prepares a surprise that the cobbler could never, ever have imagined.
So he goes back to the street corner, and he just hands these new boots to the old man. I mean, right there, that's an incredible act of kindness. For a guy with frozen feet wrapped in cardboard, a pair of warm boots is just a massive gift. But the stranger, he wasn't done yet. As the cobbler puts his hands inside the boots to check them out, he finds the real gift. Now, one source says it was $20,000. The other one just calls it a life-changing amount of cash, basically a massive stack of bills stuffed deep inside. Either way, it was enough money to completely change his world. And this is the climax of it all. The old man who just moments before had given away his only pair of shoes is now holding a gift that could pay for those hearing aids or cover the medical bills or just give his family a chance, and he's just completely overcome. He breaks down, weeping at this unbelievable generosity from a total stranger. So why did this story, even with its different versions, connect with millions of people? I mean, what is it about this particular narrative that just resonates so deeply with all of us? Well, it's because it taps into these huge universal ideas that we all understand. You've got radical kindness, first from the cobbler, and then it's returned to him by the stranger. You've got selfless sacrifice for your family, and it doesn't matter which version you read. There's this idea of finding hope in the absolute bleakest circumstances. And I think most of all, it shows the immense power of one person's choice to completely change another person's world. And that kind of leaves us with a final question to think about. We've got two versions of the why, a sick wife or an orphaned granddaughter. But the feeling of empathy we get,
The inspiration, it's exactly the same. So does it really matter which version is true if the story itself inspires that same profound sense of humanity in all of us? Something to chew on.